delighted to have Jon Brooks, or affectionately known to me as Jon the Price, which we'll explain in a second, join me on Ideas in Love, Life and Business. Welcome, Jon. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Rebecca. Great to be here.
So just to explain the Jon the Price part, do you want to tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and how we connected and why we're talking, and then I'll explain that name.
Yeah, well, I do pricing, so I think there might be a logical link there. Last year I set up my own business, helping mainly recruitment businesses and a few other businesses we might talk about to improve their pricing. So yeah, that's what I do. Obviously, you've got a long background in recruitment.
Yeah.
I've got 15 years in recruitment. So yeah, we were talking about how we help recruiters in different ways, and I do the price. So yeah,
you do the price.
It hasn't stuck yet, so in fact, not this bit. I don't want it to stick either.
Well, okay, I'll stop trying then. But yes, it's a Welsh. So I've got Welsh heritage, and it's a Welsh thing. So you're called whatever it is you do. So my dad and mum used to run an antiques business, so he was Jones the Antique, and it just, you know. And
I grew up over the river in near Weston-super-Mare.
Okay.
Yeah. All our sports teachers were Welsh. So.
And were they Jon the Sport?
Not quite, no.
Jon the Rugby.
Yeah, pretty much.
So yeah, so we actually share quite a similar background, but actually in what we did when we worked for recruitment companies. So you had 15 years with Reed.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that right. And I obviously did 15 years with Hayes. So very, very similar backgrounds in terms of big recruitment organizations. And we connected, I think back at the beginning of this weird period that we've just been through. So back at the beginning of lockdown, through some other shared connection, and just started talking about what it is that you do. And one of the things that stuck with me was I suddenly realized that in all the time I've worked with recruiters, so I did 15 years with Hayes, I've run my own business for another 10 years, I coach with recruiters and work with recruitment companies now, is I was a bit stuck on, well, how many different pricing models are there? Because I don't really remember there being very many different models. There might be different amounts, but actually the structure of the models were the same. And that's kind of where we started from. So are there more than one model of recruitment pricing, Jon? Is there more than one model?
Are there? Just.
Okay.
There wasn't until recently. I think there's a very narrow understanding or difference in the types of recruiting, but yeah, it's all of a theme. So it's all pretty much 99.9% of it is it's a percentage of first year salary if you're looking at perm recruitment, and we'll take that as a fee. And let's say my guess is the average for the whole industry is 15%.
Yeah,
that fluctuates here. If you go into like high tech or super niche stuff, might be much higher. Up to 30% in the UK. I have seen 35%. All the way down to 10%, and with price pressures, you actually, I hate it because people tell me this, but people are now breaking 10%. So when you talk about different amounts, it's actually interesting that people can go from anything from 10% to 30%, 35%. Yeah. That's a massive range.
It is range, yeah.
So one of the kind of side things I do is help people just understand how big that range is. People get a bit tied up with percentages. There's a lot of advantages with using percentage pricing. But one of the downsides is 15% of salary, 18% of salary doesn't sound much difference. But it's a 20% difference in the fee.
Yeah.
So if you turn that into £5,000 placement, £5,000 fee, it could be a £6,000 fee. So you can quickly lose money by not quite understanding the percentage.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talked about early doors, and that you said that you do as part of your working with clients is get the calculator out and actually get really real with the numbers. This is what you're charging, and because you don't understand your pricing model, and because you haven't looked at it, and this is what you could be getting if you changed it slightly, right? And that must throw up some huge numbers. And you did this exercise with Reed, didn't you, when you were there? Wasn't this part of what you?
Yeah, and I won't give you the exact numbers, but company the size of Reed, I was talking to another one earlier this week, and they'd done the numbers themselves. They just hadn't worked out how to implement it. They said, hang on, if we go from, let's say it was 17% to 18%, which feels, when you talk to a client, it doesn't feel like a big jump. For a company their size, they calculated they'd make £1 million more a year.
Wow.
So if you can get a handle on it, it's huge. It's pretty exciting for the people running that company.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for, there's a trickle down effect. Everyone who's further down that chain is making money as well. Absolutely. And the consultants who are working it and working with those models. And one of the things that when we started talking, we started exploring about pricing around not just outside of recruitment into coaching, which is obviously one of the things that I do coaching, but also I talk to a lot of coaches who are looking at how they price and how they structure it. And one of the exercises I do with either coaches or entrepreneurs who are looking to start a business is knowing what their end revenue ideal is, and then working back from that as to how many clients they might need for that. So as a coach, if you want to be earning this much a year, how many clients would that be, and how many hours would you spend on it to try and come up with their pricing? And again, those little subtle differences when you work on those sort of numbers can make a huge difference. But we went a little bit deeper into it then around not just the numbers. You kind of put your calculator away for a bit, and you start talking more about the less tangible benefits of pricing. So what is it that we can also look at within there that makes a real difference to how we implement and change our models? Yeah, so the key thing to get your pricing right, and when I say pricing, I mean I'm covering quite a lot of that. It's all about value. If you're creating value for your customer, they'll pay you, right? It's a pretty easy conversation. You and I, probably most people watching this, we've all sold in our time, and we found it hard. Like there have been times when you're selling against a brick wall and you're not getting there. If the person you're sitting next to, the person you're pitching to, your customer, if you're creating value for them, the conversation just gets very easy. You're almost not a salesperson. You're just delivering that package, taking over the line. If you're not focusing on the value, if you're not helping them see the value, if you're not reminding them of the value, it gets harder again. So if you just go in and say, let's take recruitment as an example, or coaching as another example. You go into a client and you say, great, I will recruit for you or coach for you. And it's £1,000. Really, you've not talked about value there at all. And you've ended on price. And really the only thing they can do there is say, well, okay, let's talk about the price. Let's move the price. Whereas if you have a conversation about value, you say, well, what do you need from this? These are the kind of things I can deliver for you within the realm of recruitment or coaching, making you a better leader, whatever it is. And you give them, we'll talk about options and choice, but you give them a few options and say, look, here are ways I can add value. If that's done in a way that's a conversation, so again, I talk to my clients about not having a monologue. If you have a conversation and they're saying to you, oh, you know what? Yeah, that would work really well for me because I really struggle with that. And then, so I put my calculator away, you're right. I get them to do the calculation. So I say, okay, well, if you could get better at that, how would that affect you? What do you make on that at the moment? If let's say they're a classic business, B2B business, what's your revenue on that? And they say, okay, £100,000. And you say, well, what do you think? Do you think you could get better? And they're like, well, yeah, I think if we got it right, we could get 10% better. Like, cool. That's a specific value. So people might have been thinking of value at some a nebulous thing. Actually, you can make it quite specific. And once the client has said to you, yeah, I think you could make me £10,000, then they've told you you're going to make them £10,000. So obviously don't charge them £10,000 because that's pointless. But also don't charge them a tenner.
Yeah. So once you've demonstrated the value that you'll bring, and they can. I mean, I love that. It's very much like with coaching. You know, you want to lead the individual to their own answers, right? So, you know, I love your line of questioning there. And we did this exercise talking about, you know, my pricing with people that I'm working with. You know, is where do you see the value? What would that value be? How will you know what that value is when you've achieved it? And then, okay, now do you want me to do that for you? And it just changes the whole conversation in terms of then saying your price, right? In relation to, they already know what it's going to give them. Yeah, and I think that's really powerful. It's one of the things that having had many pricing conversations over my period of 25 years in recruitment, you know, that was a whole different angle and very much fitted with what I do in my coaching, which is often talking to people about what values are important to them. You know, so it's relating that. Same with the business. You know, what's important to you as a business? Well, actually, what's really important to us as a business is we have repeat clients who work with us, you know, over and over and again. And you know, okay, great. So if you could get your clients to stay with you, if you got it right, and they came back each time, what value would that bring? Well, I'd have to do less advertising, less marketing. Okay, so if you were making the money on those, what would that look like? How much would that be? The whole conversation is taken away from numbers and pricing and models and structures and salaries to what's the value for you, what's the value for your customer, what's the experience.
Another example that springs to mind, I was helping another coach, and she specializes in professional services, so law firms and accountancy firms, associates, so pretty high level people, helping them transition or getting them ready to transition to partner. So really big deal for the individual.
Yeah.
And of course for the firm, because in effect a partner is like an owner, one of the owners of the firm, so they're getting a new owner. So it's a really big deal. And she's got a good pitch, she's got a niche, she knows what she's doing. But she did focus on kind of saying, what I do is I help the transition from associate to partner. And then moved on from that. And I was like, well, let's dwell on that. Let's unpick the value you're creating there. What's a partner expected to do? Okay, bring in new business. How much new business?
Yeah.
Okay, well, in big law firms, you're talking, there's a lot of zeros at the end of those numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Again, going back to my last example, what if you were 10% better at bringing in, 10% more confident at bringing in business? Okay, well, hang on, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds here. So you can get the client really excited about working with you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's what they value, of course. It's never what you value.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the language you're using, you know, and I know you do this because where you help people in, you know, not just decide what it's going to be, but implement the change, is you're coaching them. You know, where you're talking to the coach there, you're asking the questions that we'd ask as a coach. You know, okay, you're saying that, but let's unpick it a little bit. What does that actually mean? Where is the value in that? You know, and it's a coaching exercise. Yeah. And with the end game insight, or the end user insight, the end customer insight, you know, what's the value for you before you talk about what the price is. We saw it's all, I mean, it's so fascinating. And one thing you mentioned there around, you know, values was also around choice, you know, pricing choice. And one of the things that when I'm doing quite traditional recruitment training and coaching, when we talk about prices, you know, how easily people give it away, you know, who drop their price, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes because they're not, you know, recognizing the value that they add and how to demonstrate that value, but often because they have one price. So they kind of have to drop from that price because they've got nothing else to go to. So I know you talk about choice a lot, and a bit like me, you like the magic of three, don't you?
Yeah.
What do you normally talk about this, the choice that you would build into any sort of pricing for whatever it is?
Yeah, so this is a really good time to talk about consumer pricing, which of course we see all the time. So that's B2C, it's the jargon, but yeah, as consumers, as normal people, this is the prices we see every time we buy anything. So you think you buy a lot every week. That's more advanced. There's more data. There's more people like me focusing on exactly how to do that. There's more studies around that. There's more psychology. There's academics who work on it and they trick their students with different pricing. So I kind of read up on that. That's what I do for my day job. And then
I was going to ask you what you do in your life, and now I know.
Yeah, read academic papers on professors tricking their students into paying more for beer.
Oh, you're going to have to share that. You're going to have to share the link to that. That sounds like a great article to read.
Yeah. I always say, let me do the reading and I'll just
okay. All right. Okay.
I'll give you the good bits.
Okay.
Anyway, so there's all that kind of stuff. So you can learn a lot from consumer pricing, and then actually B2B pricing is not just recruitment, which has a long way to go in pricing terms. Coaching as well. There's a lot of opportunity with pricing, but I talk to people who do pricing roles within law firms, accountancy firms, media firms. This is pretty new stuff, and there's a long way to go for all of these firms. So I think B2B can learn a lot and is learning a lot. So I've chosen recruitment and coaching as a couple of areas I can really help with. I'm hoping, I'm predicting that this becomes a much bigger thing. There will be, pricing will become smarter in B2B. Anyway, so let's look at choice within consumers, and then we'll see where it happens. So a nice example that a lot of people see on a daily basis, or when we're allowed out of the house, is Starbucks and the rest of them. Coffee cup sizes. So you could, of course, it would almost make our lives easier if you just went in and said, I'd like a coffee. And they gave you a coffee. Revolutionary idea. So much to do that. You're not going to get that. You know that. And there's a reason why they're not going to let you go. They're not going to make it easy for you. But let's just think about the cup sizes. Let's forget about the milk and everything else. You've got what used to happen is they say small, medium, or large. Now, of course, even more psychology and marketing. Now they translate that into Italian or fake Italian. I don't know if it's real. And they started from large and went super large, and then a Colosseum size or whatever. Anyway, the point is you've got 3 options, and 3, as you say, magic of 3. It's proven to work better than 4 or 5 or 2 or 1. What it does is, it does a hell of a lot of stuff. So stop me when you get bored, but I'll give you a few of the kind of psychological effects going on. And then when you next go and get a coffee, you'll be like, what's happening in my brain? Let's pick one. So first of all, it put the prices in context. So if you went in and said, all right, I'd like a coffee from Starbucks. I'd like a nice coffee from Starbucks. And they go, great. £4. You'd be like, hang on. That seems expensive. I don't know. Is that expensive? Like, am I happy about that? I don't know. You might, when you next go in another shop, you'll compare things. You'll be looking to compare. Whereas what they've done with 3 options is given you the comparison. They've created the context. They control the context. They're not saying, no, check out what McDonald's are doing it for or what Costa are doing it for. That's not in their interest. They're saying, look, let's just go small, medium, large, because I can't remember the Italian. Small is £2.50. Medium is £3, maybe not that far away, and large is £5.50. And then you've got context. You're like, well, okay, an expensive coffee is £5.50. A cheap coffee is £2.50. And guess what I'm going to say? We tend to default to the middle. And they've deliberately not made the pricing go in steps. They've made it incremental, exponential. Sorry.
Exponential. So
there you go. Well, in that context, it's not much more for me to treat myself to a medium. So you've chosen. Let's talk about choice. You've chosen to pay more than you could have. So you could have got a coffee for £2.50, and you chose to pay more than £2.50. they haven't sold you it in a traditional sales sense.
Yeah.
They've made you, or they've allowed you to do it.
Yeah. They've guided you to that choice, like you say, with all this psychological stuff around it, where you feel that you're making a choice, which empowers people. You feel that you're the one in control of it. You're making the decisions, and yeah, it's really powerful. We did an exercise, didn't we, in the constellation group, which you're part of, around with other small business owners doing all sorts of different things in and around recruitment. Is you brought the example of holiday insurance,
Yeah.
with the sort of idea of the different things you get with it, and we did a little exercise where we saw what people chose, and most people chose the middle one, because it wasn't the cheapest, wasn't the most expensive, and when you looked at the differences between the benefits, it was kind of, actually, for what I need, I'd go there. But then interestingly, you went for the higher priced one because you have a particular need for one of the benefits that meant you went, well, actually, that to me is more important.
Yeah.
So that idea of splitting it into what are the benefits and what do you get for your money.
And having that, so another effect is that top option. So in my case, the medical insurance, there's loads of stuff that comes within the travel insurance. You lose a bag, I don't care. My clothes don't cost very much, so I'll just replace them myself, thanks.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to America, and I think I might get an allergic reaction to some food. I want to be covered for that, and I want to be properly covered for that.
Yeah.
So I'll pay a little bit more. I'll pay, in the context, quite a bit more. I think it was another 40 quid on £100 in the example. So having that top option also allows people to pay more. Let's say you only had the £3.50 coffee. There are certain people in certain situations willing to pay much more than that. I don't love coffee, so I don't think of it as a treat. If you think on a wine list, you often have that either 3 price points or 3 groups of wines. In a nice restaurant, that's kind of 20 quid a bottle ish, 30 quid a bottle ish, and then God knows, let's just say 100 quid a bottle ish, but 60 to 100 to ridiculous amounts. And of course, almost all the time people go in and say, great, house wine, cheers. I'm on my own. I just want a wine. Or actually, I'm here with some friends, and there's value to this. I'm not going to skimp. I'll pay £10 more, but between 4 of us, fine. I'm choosing to pay more. But it's your 40th birthday. It's an anniversary. There's a 60 quid bottle of wine. The waiter says it goes really nicely with a good meal. It feels better. All of that stuff comes into it. So if just 10% of your customers, or 10% of the time, people chose to pay you a huge amount more, then actually that's great for your bottom line. They're happy. They've chosen to do it. You haven't forced them. And when they aren't choosing, it's given them the context. So that can work very well.
So we talked about choice. We talked about value. We talked about how there are parallels between different B2B and B2C. And I just want to round up really, because there's some great ideas around there around pricing. And I think that any business owner who is selling to either consumers or businesses, to look at their pricing, right, to understand it, to actually look at it and go, does it make sense to me, let alone who I'm selling it to? So I think there's great value in that. But also for you, I mean, I'm interested really as to why doing this is so important to you. Why you created, you've been going about a year now doing your own consultancy. Is how does that support your life? What value does that bring to your life?
That's a big question.
I thought I'd end on a big one.
I've got a daughter who's going to be 3 fairly soon, and I've really enjoyed being a part of her life. I took shared parental leave. I think I was one of the first to do that in my company. interestingly, first in my company, but in our little baby group, NCT group, I think of the 7 dads, 4 of them took between 1 and 3 months shared parental leave. So
yeah, fantastic.
Prior to knowing that, I thought, this is something that should change and needs to change. And actually, it felt like it is changing. So that was cool. While I was still working for other people, I went down to 4 days a week. So then do a weekday with my daughter. So that's really nice as well. So actually, that wasn't why I set up my own business, because I was making that work anyway. But obviously, running my own business, as a lot of your viewers and people that is a huge benefit. The flexibility. Of course, it works both ways. It can then go into the evenings and whatever. But I think that's probably the modern way of working. I think the other thing is, I always felt entrepreneurial, but with a commercial angle, or almost a cynicism of, I didn't want to do something unless I knew it was going to work. What I used to say, so 15 years at Reed was a long time. I mean, I'll ask you why you spent 15 years at Hayes. And for people who don't know, massive direct competitors. So we've settled our differences, haven't we? But people said, oh yeah, 15 years, that is a long time. But it did feel like every 2 to 3 years, I got a new thing to do. I actually worked directly with the founder of Reed, who's incredibly entrepreneurial. So set it up 60 years ago. Learn a huge amount from him. Set up some of his ideas. Then later on, set up some, made my own business case to set those up. I was always working with new things. So I almost said, well, I would go and set up my own business. But actually, before I got to it, another thing came along. So maybe it would have happened sooner. But I got a very good 15 years out of Reed.
And what better year than to start your own business than the year we've just been in, right? And I mean that without any irony, actually, because whilst it's been a tough year, it has opened up so many opportunities. Both you and I have seen that. In terms of people being open to new ideas, being open to looking at things that have just been there forever, because they've just been there forever, like everyone being in the office, and suddenly we're all at home, and how does that work? And I think for both of us, that opens up conversations around, well, what could we change about pricing, or what could we change about how we lead our teams, or what could we change about how we train our teams or coach our teams? So I think it's a great year, and we've both seen fantastic collaborations. We're working on some stuff together, which I don't know, may have happened, if we hadn't just gone through the 6 months that we've gone through, who knows. But very similar backgrounds in the different recruitment companies, and very much like you, I always had that entrepreneurial feel about where I worked with a senior leadership team, some of which you now work with, and there was always that sense of working in a way that was like running your own business, and I picked, I learned a lot of those skills, but then they always presented me with another opportunity that meant I could do it where I was. Until we just ran out of ideas, or I just decided it was better to do it for myself.
Never ran out of ideas.
No, they're still going. But listen, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. You and I talk all the time about pricing, and there's so much more we could talk about. So how do people get hold of you if they want to know more? Because I think there is real value in what you bring to people, and people should come and have a conversation with you. So how do we find you, Jon?
So as any good recruiter or ex-recruiter does, I still hang out on LinkedIn all the time. So contact me there, connect me. It's great. I try and share useful stuff, like ideas like this. So do that. I'm actually firing up my newsletter again. I hadn't told you that.
Okay, great.
It had a COVID break, but I'm kind of building my business back up, or the tasks around my business. I was like, hang on. This newsletter is a really good idea, and it's good to create the community, much like you're very good at creating communities. So yeah, if you want to join a community, join my newsletter, you can go to my website for that, and there's some information on services, but this is all getting like a business pitch, just connect with me on LinkedIn.
I will put all the links below, right? So when people have watched and they're enthused by the idea of looking at their pricing without calculators, often, which is nice, then they can get in touch with you. You will always, for me, be affectionately known as John the Price, but I'll try and stop saying that in public quite so much.
One day I'll make you call me John the Value.
Oh, yes, like it. We might do a relaunch. We'll do a relaunch.
A rebrand, a personal rebrand.
Yeah, we'll do a rebrand. Fantastic.